we got Eric Stelzer in the house. Thank you for driving all the way here from Lyons. You have quite the catalog of things that you do from what we discussed, but you've been a business owner for 13 years. You understand the real estate game here locally. Geoengineer, is that correct? Or you work in geoengineering?
No, just I've just done some reading on some geoengineering activities that have taken place all over the country and
Okay.
things like that.
All right. And I understand you also volunteer quite a bit in the local community, homeless
I
shelters.
have in the past.
That you have. Okay. And you participate in Ironmans, right? Or you have, like, or is it
I
a.
volunteered in an Ironman, and I've done a few marathons and a number of half marathons. Next Sunday, I'll be at the Bridge of the Gods half marathon at Cascade Locks, and then I used to be in the Rotary After Five here for about 5 years, and we put on the Corvallis half marathon here.
Wow, okay.
Busy guy.
Yeah, you got a lot. And that's not all. So the big topic of discussion I want to talk is the water treatment. I understand you have worked in the largest slow sand filter plant in the country. Do you want to explain really quick what sets that apart, like, from a normal water treatment facility?
Uh, a typical water treatment facility, they'll have conventional filters, and they have different tanks that force water through in a conventional treatment, and there's a mixed media, and the water will go through, and after a certain amount of time, it'll start to get clogged, and they'll have to clean that filter out, and it happens systematically, and it's done with these large clarifiers and large basins, and they do that because it has a smaller footprint, like the Taylor plant just up the road here. They only need, I don't know how large that plant is, what its footprint is, but maybe it's I don't know, 5 acres or something like that, and they can do that, and they can treat enough water for a city like this. Slow sand filter, which they originally had across the country, it requires a larger footprint. Our particular island is a 250-acre island out in Stayton, and each one of our filters is about 2.5 acres in each size, and we have 7 of them. One of them's 4 acres, and 6 of them are 2.5 acres. And as of yesterday, I was just in charge of the plant for this last week. We put out 42 million gallons a day.
Wow.
And we have that coming through our filters, and then we treat it with chlorine. We have an on-site generation system. We make chlorine at that plant with salt and electricity, and then we have to put fluoride in it because that's what the voters or the people of Salem want. And then we use soda ash, and the soda ash is put into place to control the pH of the water, and that has to do with the lead and copper rule. They have some people in a lot of the older houses.
Is that like calcium carbonate?
They use lead in when they made the joints and the connections in the pipe, and if the water isn't treated, it could leach out and people could drink it. Well, they don't build homes like that with those in there, but those houses still exist.
Yeah.
So the regulation is that the pH of the water needs to meet a certain criteria, and we do that with soda ash. And then that water happens to be in Stayton, and it runs about 17, 18 miles until it gets to Turner, Oregon, where we have a reservoir that holds about 90 to 95 million gallons of water, and it's just a big pool of water, and it's there and as a backup. And also the water comes from our plant and it fills up in there, and there's contact time with the water and the chlorine, the chemicals that are mixing. But that water gets turned over, well, roughly every 2.5 days.
Wow.
Because if the demand for the city of Salem is 40 million and that reservoir holds 95, well, all that water's replaced in 2 days. So we can use that as a buffer in case, what happens if we can't pull any water coming in from the river? Well, we have a buffer there, so we better hurry up and fix the situation. But we also have ground wells at on the island as well that we balance, and we take water from the South Santiam and the groundwater wells.
That's a lot of water.
Yeah, so, and in the winter it's 19, 20.
Wow. So you did that. You were part of that for 20 years, correct? Or more?
What's that?
Just being a part of this whole process in this specific plant.
I worked at. I was down here in Corvallis, and I had a business, and I did mortgages and real estate.
Okay.
And until about 2016, I decided, well, I had to change professions, so I decided to get into water, and so I was, I don't know, 53.
It seems like a really big jump to go from real estate to like water treatment. What was in your mind at that point when you decided to go from real estate stuff to water treatment? Did something push you that way, or
oh, yeah.
Were you just interested in it before, or?
Well, actually, and I won't go through a lot of the details, but there was some life-changing events that took place.
Mm-hmm.
You want to pull that mic just a little bit closer, please?
It had some life-changing events that took place, and one of them, as you know, was the economic collapse of 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had 3 or 4 mortgage companies at the time and a real estate firm.
That was a rough time to be in real estate then, right?
Well, at that time for me, so there was a lot of things. There were things that took place, not just the collapse, but there was some other pressures, and then some family pressures from there. So it was kind of starting over and figuring out what was I going to do. Decided to make some life changes, and so I lived downtown Corvallis. You
were born, raised here most of your life, or?
No, I was actually born and raised in San Jose, California.
Oh, okay.
And in 1994 is when I bailed out of California for a completely different life change, and moved to Corvallis, and it was kind of like throwing a dart. I just knew I was going to move, and I packed up everything I owned, put it in a Ryder truck. A friend of mine came up with me. He asked me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm moving to Oregon." Where?
Wow.
And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "You got to bring this truck back." And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, can I go with you?" And I said, "Sure, hop in." So we drove up and got to Ashland and bought a map, looked at it geographically. Where am I going to start? How about Ashland? Nah, it's too close. Kept moving. I didn't want to get too close to Portland because in San Jose, geographically, you've got San Jose, Stockton, Hayward. Well, not Stockton, but Oakland, Hayward, San Francisco. Things get worse as you start getting up there, right? And I didn't want anything to do with that. So I didn't want to go east. I wanted the green. I like the green, and the coast kind of seemed out of reach. I like to visit the coast a lot, but I'm not really sure I want to live there. And then he said, "Well, hey, there's this place in the, what about Eugene?" I said, "Well, how many people are in Eugene?" And he told me at the time, I think it was 180,000 people. And that's too many people.
Too many.
And he says, what about Salem? You know, it's the capital. I say, how many people are there? He says, more. No. So then he says, right in between, he said, well, there's a place called Sweet Home in Corvallis. I said, there's a town called Sweet Home. Let's go check it out. So we drove there and had a burger and looked around, and I said, okay, this is Oregon, but it's a little small for me. And we've been driving all day, so let's go to Corvallis. We'll go get a motel. We'll check it out. And then we came over the bridge, and I said, wow, check this place out. And he says, oh, Oregon State. And I said, they have a football team, he says. They do? And he says, yeah. He says, I think they're the worst in the league at the time. Well, not the worst, but, you know, something, because he follows the college football and all that. A lot of that stuff changed, of course. And I said, oh, that's interesting, and let's go check out the university. And anyway, we ended up, the place looked pretty cool, and so we got a room, and then we went out to dinner and found out Hewlett-Packard was here, which I would end up working at for about 4 years.
Only 4?
Yeah, I worked full-time and went to school at LBCC, so I worked graveyard and worked at HP.
Roadrunner.
And
Roadrunners, yeah.
and I was in Rotary at the time and working with the homeless.
Wow.
And stuff down here. And, you know, it's at this point, Alec was getting a little bit older, and he was staying with me at the time while he was figuring things out. So it was just a really, really busy time. So, you know, I had some roots here, and I had bought a house in 1994, and I bought a house over in Barley Hill. And then I think 5 years later, I bought a house on Bell Fountain Road.
Oh, right.
We had a few acres up there, and I was there for over a decade, I think.
Bell Fountain's nice. I like it over there. Nice and secluded.
Yeah, it was a nice place. And so, you know, I had done real estate, and I still dabble in some other things that I do with real estate, but not selling real estate and not really doing mortgages. I can always go back into that, but at the time I decided to kind of change widgets, because I had these companies and started it, and I had a friend of mine, some colleagues of mine that I've done business with. He brought up water, and I was interested in changing widgets, water filtration. I said, that sounds interesting. I said, but I kind of like to know a thing or two about it. Well, read a book. Well, you know, they happen to have a program at LBCC called the WET program,
Okay.
Water, Environment, and Technology. I think I'll go get another degree in it. And so I went and did that. And then instead of opening up a company at the time, I kind of got involved in what was going. And at one point in about 2018, I moved to Lyons. And while I was there, I was approached by somebody that noticed that I was going to school for this degree. And they hired me to work at Lyons-Mehama Water District while I was going to school. So my contract ended at HP. I was a contract employee there.
Oh, okay.
And because I went through two-year contracts with them. And so I worked at Lyons-Mehama, and I was there about 3 years, and did everything from reading meters and cleaning filters and fixing pipes and digging holes and doing all these things. And then a job opening became available about 7 miles up the road, and just happened. It's hidden. It's on an island. A lot of people don't even know it's there, and paid a lot better. And they hired me for that. And what they were doing was they were hiring a group of people, because in 2018, I wasn't really aware of it at the time, but about 2017, 18, they had problems with cyanotoxins.
I was going to ask what those were.
Cyanotoxins, they're carcinogenic, and they're algae blooms at just the right time in Detroit Lake. If there's too many of them, they can make you sick. Okay, this is a lot of times why if you've ever been to a campsite at a lake, during the time that they have algae blooms, they'll tell you don't let your dogs drink the water out of the lake, or they'll die.
Wow.
And this happens. You know, we've seen it happen when we've gone out camping. Well, that's one reason. So, but humans are, a little bit more versatile and can handle a little bit more. But when it comes to the drinking water, there was a time in 2018 when the population of the cyanotoxins were pretty high, and a lot of people complained in the city of Salem. And so what they decided to do
Were people getting sick, or what was the root of the complaints? Like, were they noticing something different in the water? Like just average citizens?
Average citizens, and I believe, I have to try to remember because I wasn't living in Salem. I was in Lyons, and I think they had a boil water notice, possibly.
Oh, okay.
For a very small amount of time. And I can't be sure about that, but there was enough concern that the people were getting concerned about the quality of the water. So they went to the city and said, do something. And so they invested about $90 million, and we built an ozone facility on our plant. And that's one of the reasons that they had hired me, because they had to hire more people.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, that's so you're basically just as the water is being delivered from the plant, it goes through like an ozone pipe or something before it's delivered to the public to kill anything that's left over, or where does the ozone fit into the process?
Well, what happens is the water all throughout the year, typically, the water coming from the North San Am is already pretty clean because we don't really have any sewage being put into the river ahead of us.
Okay.
Most of those towns, Idana, Mill City and such, they're on septic tanks. So we don't have any sewage being put in. So we get this water that's pretty clean already. And it comes through our intake, and then that water goes into a 2.5 acre slow sand filter. And so there's roughly 3-4 feet of sand of different size granules. It's a lot more coarse at the very bottom. There's perforated pipe. It's all gravity fed. And that water fills up, goes up about 6 feet, 2.5 acre swimming pool, goes through there. And then that water comes down and drains into our pump station that takes that water now that there's an ozone, and pumps that water through our ozone facility into a contact chamber. And in where there's a great big pipe about the size of this room that goes through before it's going to go to the other filters. And when you take liquid oxygen and add 5,000 volts of electricity to it, you create a third oxygen molecule. And when that happens, that's a gas that gets injected into this pipe. And within seconds, it's like putting an egg in a microwave. It's going to explode.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens.
Oh.
So it explodes the parasites, anything that's in that water. And then, after that happens, we add hydrogen peroxide to remove that third oxygen molecule, bring it back to H2O. And now that water gets put on another 2.5 acre filter. So now it's filtered twice.
Yeah.
And so when you're standing on one of the filters and you're looking at the raw water going in, you can't really see the bottom of the sand. But when you look at the finished filter, it's very clear. You can see the bottom. Then now that water drains from that filter and is piped down about 10 plus acres or 20 acres down field where our on-site chlorine generation system is. And then we add chlorine and fluoride and soda ash all at the same point, and then off it goes for 17 miles.
Wow.
And it doesn't reach its first customer until it gets to Turner. So all that water blends. So that's how we deal with the cyanotoxins, and we keep that thing running basically all year round, even though the cyanotoxin season is only 3-4 months.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. So, what kind of pressures are you having to deliver that for that 17 miles, or it's like 60 psi, or like just that's gotta? Do you need more pressure to cover that kind of distance?
Well, it's all going downhill, so it's
Okay.
it's all gravity fed, and we maintain about 21 pounds psi in the pipes at all times, and you maintain that psi in there because if there's any breaks in the line, if you maintain pressure, water can leak out, and if you didn't have pressure, it would suck sediment in and contaminate the water. So we maintain pressure on that all the time.
And so when it goes into like a local, like a municipality, is there pumps there that like when it's delivering it to the houses that ups the pressure, or is it still gravity fed at that point?
No, it does. We basically from the Friends Reservoir, we control it in Stayton on how much water's going through the certain valves into two particular reservoirs. They're above ground, I think, reservoirs. There's got to be like 20 of them. And some are below ground, some are above ground. And those two reservoirs hold, I don't know what it is, 2 to 5 million gallons, about that. And we maintain those two. And then at that point, a different department with the city called Pumps and Controls, they control which pumps go on and off. We're going to send this water to West Salem. We're going to send it down South Salem, and they fill other reservoirs. Those pumps come on. Well, they have baffles in there. So when it gets too low, it requests water coming from these two reservoirs that we keep full all the time.
I never realized it was such an extensive, like I thought there was just like a plant in a town and they recycled the water from all the homes and it was just redistributed. I didn't realize that there was places that spread out. Like I always thought it was very, like we have a small treatment facility just right here in Southtown. I don't really know exactly if it's, for our water or how it works, but it just seems very small compared to something like you said, which is 4 acres. That's, it's just impressive to me.
Where you have a population of about 60?
Yeah.
Okay, and so ours is about 375.
Okay.
About there.
Okay.
So the demand for water obviously is more.
Yeah.
And we don't know when, but there's talk that they might end up building a plant in West Salem on the other side of the river.
Okay.
Because of the expected growth.
Yeah. Yeah, it is growing all the time. Yeah, I know that here we have the plant by Home Depot there, and then it's this little one. I think it's just those two here in Corvallis. I never got to actually see them, but I know that one there by Home Depot is pretty big.
The plant in Home Depot, that's a wastewater facility.
Okay.
So that is the treated water when people are done and they flush their toilets and sewer water and everything else goes to that plant and they treat it so it can meet certain state guidelines, and then it's put into the Willamette River, and off it goes.
Oh, okay.
And then Albany pulls in water, and they treat it just like they have a different procedure, but they have to treat the water just like we do for drinking water, and then they have a wastewater facility
So
that
it
puts it back in,
magnifies.
and then it goes on down the river.
Wow. I never knew that. Yeah.
Your Taylor plant is, from where we're sitting, is within a mile over by the river over there.
Okay. That might be the one I'm thinking about then. Yeah, it's just like seems like it's a small plant. I probably haven't seen the whole thing, but it just looks pretty small. How long did you have to go to school for this when you were part of that wet program?
Couple of years.
Couple years? Okay. Because it seems like, I was thinking, it's like, man, is it like a biochemist or something of the sort? But yeah, I guess not. So
You're studying biology and chemistry, and because they don't know if you're going to go into wastewater or drinking water, so they cover the whole grommet. And then they cover distribution. And then they cover pipes and fittings and pumps.
yeah,
The whole grommet on it, because they don't know which direction you're going to go. And so that's what the wet program does. And they don't offer it at LBCC.
not
anymore.
anymore. Oh wow.
Well, they didn't have it wasn't making them enough money.
If somebody wanted to get, like, do you go to a university or is there like online courses do you know of for today if someone was wanting to get into this particular field?
They still have this program, I believe, in Clackamas,
Oh, okay.
and Sacramento State
Okay.
has an online course. I'm not sure if you can. I get certifications from there, but when I'm taking a different level test, I'm a level 3 operator, and level 4 is the highest you can go. And so I just took a level 3 a couple years ago, and I took that course. And but I think you can. I think you could do a program there where you can go a couple years, but you don't necessarily have to have a degree to get a job. But you might end up starting, at the bottom, and then
Yeah.
after you have a certain amount of time, if you were lucky enough to get on in a plant, once you have a certain amount of hours and times in, then you can go and take a level 1 certification, and then you need to meet another criteria. So it just helps if I have the 2-year program. I was able to fast track it a little bit.
Gives you a bit of a head start. Yeah. So, okay. How do you, kind of backtracking here a bit, how do you feel like the fluoride in the water thing? Like, I feel like that's a hotly debated topic amongst people. I don't really know much. I understand they put it in to improve dental health. Right? Does that sound correct? What is, people fear that it's like a neurotoxin. What are your thoughts on that? If you had a place to speak on it.
Well, we would like to. I can't speak for everybody, but the idea would be that we would like to remove the fluoride from the drinking water that goes to our customers. And the reasons that we believe that is at the time that they came up with the science that it helps your teeth. How long ago was that? A long time ago.
Yeah, it's like the 70s or something like that.
Meanwhile, we have lots and lots of products that contain fluoride in them already, including toothpaste.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, we add, when you take a look at the 40 million gallons that we're putting out and how much water is coming into your household, how much of that are you drinking? When you go to use the restroom, or you take a shower, or you water your garden,
Yeah.
water your lawn, wash your clothes, do they need fluoride? No. But you're paying for it as a customer. When you pay your water bill, you're paying for the cost of the fluoride. But most of that water is being used for everything except what it's supposed to benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want fluoride, brush your teeth with fluoride.
Yeah.
Today, 2025, we don't really need to put it in the water. As a matter of fact, if you look at the ironic thing is if you look at your toothpaste, it'll say "do not swallow."
Yeah. Yeah.
Ironic. So that's there. So and fluoride is also pretty acidic, so we have to watch. We have to adjust our pH based on the fluoride that is being put in there. And then it's also, hazardous, so we have to wear all kinds of protective equipment and gloves when we're dealing with that kind of thing. We just don't. And there are some states, is it Utah? I can't recall. I think it was Utah that just, they don't fluoridate, put fluoride in the water. I think it was Utah just did that. And Portland isn't putting fluoride in the water.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so
Clubhouse is behind Portland.
and that's because of the voters, and that's why they voted it out. But in Salem, it hasn't gone through. No one's raised had a good enough plan to argue why you shouldn't have it.
Yeah.
But that's up and coming.
Yeah, I feel like everything you just said, that's something I never even thought about. The fluoride thing is just how little is actually needed. It's a very good point.
We were making a joke that we think had a new business idea, which would be when they get rid of water that has fluoride, then we'll go out and sell bottled water that has fluoride
in it.
People would buy it because some people are always going to disagree.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, it was just kind of a joke. But we don't think it really needs to be there. And I think as time goes on, I think more people are going to do it because it's hazardous. It costs money. It costs the consumer more money. And as soon as they realize how much is actually being used for their teeth, because you're drinking it.
Yeah.
That wasn't part of the whole plan.
Yeah.
It was good for your teeth. Well, you're drinking it. Anyway.
No, yeah. I mean, when the toothpaste says "do not swallow," it's like, well, what about the water with the same active ingredient in it? It definitely kind of makes you think a bit. What about with that? So it's not like an additive per se, but there's concerns about potential magnification of pharmaceuticals in water intake for these. There's antidepressants being found in the rivers, birth control, other medications that are starting to show up in wildlife. When that comes into a plant such as the one in Stayton, is there any way to? Is it a concern that should be thought about, or is it so minuscule that it's kind of blown out of proportion? What are your thoughts on that?
No, that's becoming a more up and coming. Talked about. They're called forever chemicals.
Yeah.
And there's going to be. It seems that there's going to be more and more regulation, and there's going to be. The state DEQ, EPA is going to start possibly regulating and saying we need you guys to test for these new chemicals, and which means now all the municipalities will have to adjust, buy more equipment, do different things to test and treat for these new chemicals, whatever they are. But I know that I just attended a short school recently. You have to go, and every couple of years you have to maintain a certain amount of hours. So you go take some classes, and that topic came up on these forever chemicals that are in there. And and that's a real problem. And so another reason I wanted to invest in water filtration, it really depends on what people are thinking, whether or not the water from the city is good enough, which that's fine. and it is, that's the status quo. But you know as well as I do, people can go to Home Depot and they buy water filtration that goes underneath their sink.
Right. Yeah.
Well, why do they do that if the water's being treated so well from the city? Well, it's peace of mind.
Yeah.
Everybody has the ability to go and do that. Just like not everybody needs air conditioning, but if you have the money, you can go get air conditioning in your new house.
Yeah.
Well, same thing. Pretty soon, water filtration. If somebody says, peace of mind, throw in a water filtration. So they're spending millions of dollars treating this water to the best of their ability coming in to my house. Now, what can I do?
Yeah.
Now you do your own research and you figure out what are you going to do. Probably reverse osmosis or some type of a filtration system like that, and I remember a friend of mine was just saying, well, Eric, the water comes out of the tap is, that's what everybody's using. And this water filtration system you're talking about, I don't, do you really think people care? And we were at Safeway going to buy beer. And I said, well, come with me. And he followed me. And he goes, where are we going? I said, we're here. And he said, what am I looking at? I said, you see this entire row is water, bottled water. Yeah, people are concerned about it or they wouldn't have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's billions and $billion industry because people do care. And they'll, spend $2.50 for a bottled water, which costs less than a cent.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a markup,
Yeah.
right? So you'll fill it up. Lots of people, you fill them up, but it's a big industry because people care. They want the clean water and everything. So that's why I think water filtration at home, and people do it, and you can get a system for anywhere from under $200 to $5,000.
Yeah.
Depending on what you want to do.
Yeah, we just have like a little tabletop, like just one of the pure filters. I'm pretty sure it's just a basic carbon filter that's in those. And, it definitely removes the chlorine kind of taste out of it, but I don't really know enough about, what else or if it's even worth having. Is there a benefit? Like, I would imagine reverse osmosis is probably much more thorough than a tabletop filter. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it cost more, and then there's potentially you're using more water than you're drinking if you're just using it for drinking.
Yeah.
But then some of the tabletops and the Brita filter, or some of these filters, they have what's called granular activated carbon in them. That's basically what's in that filter, and so you filled up your pitcher, and then it goes through this filter before it trickles down into your deal, and then you pour it and pour yourself a glass of water. But what's happening is this granular activated carbon, and it also comes in powdered activated carbon. You could take a teaspoon of this stuff, kind of looks like graphite. Or sand, granular activated carbon, like sand. Take a spoonful of this. If it's very porous, you know how coral is very porous?
Yeah.
So is this stuff under a microscopic level. So much so that about a teaspoon or tablespoon of it, if you were to take that and measure and spread out the surface area of all of that, it would cover a football field.
Wow.
That's how much is in there. And what happens is the water goes through that activated carbon, and what happens is what's called adsorption. So these pathogens and everything, they find their way into there and kind of get stuck through into these porous material, and that's what's filtering out
Just
that
kind of
water.
wedges them up in there.
Yeah, and since that, like I said, a teaspoon can cover 100 yards or a football field.
Yeah.
Well, then you can put so much into a filter, and that's why you can run so many gallons of water through it before you have to replace it.
Yeah, I think ours is rated for like 55 gallons before it's done. Yeah.
And it's better than nothing, and it gets rid of that chlorine. Another thing you can also try is the chlorine will dissipate. So you can have, depending on what the dose is that the treatment plant is putting in at the time, sometimes you might go, boy, I can smell it from here. I haven't even poured a glass of water.
Yeah, yeah.
Or you wait till you get it up to your nose. But if you were to take it and put it down, come back in about 5 minutes, you wouldn't smell anything because it just dissipates after it's exposed to air.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I thought it would have stayed suspended in there.
At least the smell and the odor
Yeah.
is gone, and that's what most people are, they're concerned about that. But with those countertop filters or Brita filters, that takes that out. Now, is it going to take out fluoride? No.
Yeah, I think I actually just read the label on my filter yesterday when I was replacing it, and it said it's approved by the ADA that it does not filter out fluoride. I was like, oh, that's fascinating that they would put that on there. I thought it would have got it out, but...
And it's probably not going to take out some of these forever chemicals, because that's a real problem.
Really small, right? Like one of my friends, he's synthetic chemist or something like that, but he was trying to talk about developing a process to incorporate some sort of removal method for, he was, forever chemicals, just getting them out of the treated water. But he said that the biggest problem with it was that we can only catch down to 3 microns or something like that, and that they're smaller than that, is kind of how he described it. So I'd imagine that would take a pretty complex system to get down that small.
Yeah, you've got ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, microfiltration, all kinds of different levels, and then you can, we have a slow sand filter and we have ozone, and then we disinfect it with chlorine.
Yeah.
Well, you could also add on, if you wanted to, you could use infrared. Light kills pathogens as well. You could go on and add another step of filtration beyond there, depending on how far you want it to go. But so what you do is you kind of find out, well, where's your water source coming from? So we don't have a problem with forever chemicals because we don't have anybody discharging in the river ahead of us. So it's my opinion that the customers that are getting the water from for the city of Salem, I think they got it pretty good because the water's already pretty clean, and then we take really good care of it and kill everything in it and then send it out. So they're in pretty good shape. And the fact we just happen to be in Stayton, that's just where the island is, because at one point back in the early 1900s, and prior to that, the water plant for the city of Salem was at Minto Island, Minto Park. You know where that is? Where it's downtown, and it's off the Willamette River, and they couldn't treat their water properly, and people were getting typhoid and getting sick.
Oh,
and
wow.
it was such a concern that at one point I think the state was deciding if they were going to let Salem remain its designation as the capital.
Wow.
And they couldn't even take care of the drinking water. And then a gentleman who owned 250 acres up near Stayton contacted one of the gentlemen at Public Works and said, hey, I understand you have a problem. I've got 250 acres if you want to do some kind of filtration. And he immediately understood that the elevation, if we buy that, we can do a slow sand filter and we can do gravity feed, and we can put it in a reservoir it solved their problems. So that's what they did.
Yeah. Wow. Science is cool, man. That's pretty awesome that they would just relying on gravity like that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, but it takes a big footprint.
Yeah.
And that's why you can't put a slow sand filter everywhere.
Yeah, and you can't, like, I'd imagine it wouldn't be as effective to try to force pump it through sand. Like, I kind of, when you're describing that, it makes me think of, like, a pool sand filter, like, kind of a rudimentary comparison, I guess. But, like, that, you're kind of pressurizing water through that filter to go back into the pool. I feel like that wouldn't be as thorough as just letting the water trickle its way naturally through it.
So we have to go through, after we put through about anywhere from 900 to 1 billion gallons of water through a filter, we're able to measure what's called the head loss, the pressure, how much water's coming through a filter. We're able to find that out. And when you got a nice clean filter, that water's going right through the filter. It's nice and clean. And then as it starts to get clogged, less water's going through. And so when we get around 2, 3, or 4 feet of head loss, we know that we're going to take that filter offline and clean it, and we use a different filter. And what we do is we have machines that go in there and scrape off about anywhere from about 1/4 of an inch off this sand, and it's got a funny name to it, but that algae and stuff that's on top of the sand is what's called the Schmudstecke, is what that's called.
Interesting name.
And we clean it up, and it goes on a conveyor belt into a dump truck, and it's rolled out and put in a big sand pile. And then when we're all done with the filter, kind of float it out, make sure it's all nice and smooth, turn it back on again, fill it up with water, and we let that water filter through, and we test it for coliform and E. coli. And once we get no E. coli and less than 10 coliform, that filter's ready to be put online.
So you're not having to take all the sand out. You just have to get that top layer. Wow. I was going to ask if you had to remove all the sand, because that would have, I'd imagine 4 acres, that's probably a good amount of sand to remove.
In order to replace all the sand in one of those filters costs millions of dollars to do, because it's special sand.
Yeah.
It's been washed, it's been treated, and we might, if we measure, have a survey done at the filter, and once we get down to a particular level, we'll have somebody come out and deliver sand. I understand that might cost I don't know, $1 million to have them put out some more sand, and then it's floated out, you're good to go. But if you had to go below that sand that they're replacing, underneath maybe 14 inches, you have a different sand that's more like rocks.
Yeah.
And then below that, you've got bigger rocks, and then the perforated pipe. So and right now, we'll probably go through and clean a filter, like I said, 1 billion gallons, and we'll probably clean that filter every 2 to 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Now, they do the drawdown in Detroit. That's expected to happen at maybe every 3 weeks.
Okay, so this is what you were kind of talking about at the beginning. Okay.
And now the fine particles that are coming through because of the drawdown may go below the 1/4 inch of that Schmudstecke. They might find their way through the sand and go down as far as 12 inches to 14 inches and end up creating what's called hardpan. And it'll get packed, and now we can't use the filter. Now it's going to cost $3, $4, $5 million to have that filter, put in all new material. That's the cost effect of what's happening with this drawdown.
And so this drawdown, what are the other reasons for it that they're doing this? Is it just because I know some people were talking about how low it is. I don't really understand all the components on why they're doing it. Is it just low water, or is there more reasons involved?
And there could be more. There may be some other reasons that I can't pop off my head, but I think the main reason is you're trying to expand the habitat for the salmon and the fish.
Oh, okay.
Because the river's it's small, but without the dams, their tributaries and everything might have been larger, and they could spawn and they can do things. The migration isn't coming back like it normally would. So they're trying to fix that, and one way that they're doing it is they're going to drop the level of the dam from 1,550 feet above sea level to I think it's or 1,450 to 1,395. 1,450 is what they call full pool, I think, at Detroit, where you're out there boating, you're under whatever, and it's somewhere by the tree line.
Yeah.
Somewhere, I think.
Yeah.
They're going to drop it 50 to 100 feet.
Wow.
And that's the lowest that they've done it, I think, either in history or they might have done this a super long time ago. But all this water is going to come through. It's going to go and hit the river, and it's going to stir a bunch of stuff up. And here come these fine particles versus what had happened in Green Peter, where they basically dumped all the water out. Mm-hmm. And all these, I think they killed more fish than they were trying to save. Mm. And that was run by the Army Corps of Engineers as well. And so, but they've done this, my understanding is they've done this at different places in different states in the country. So somewhere out there, we don't know what they are. Somewhere out there, they have results that this has worked. Mm-hmm. But what they're not sharing, that I'm not unaware of, is, well, what happened in the municipalities there? Who were affected? Well, maybe they did it in a different place. There wasn't a municipality.
Yeah.
Don't know. But there isn't enough information, How come you're not sharing? Well, here's how this benefited the fish in this area. How come I'm not aware of it? What I am aware of is what damage it's going to cause the municipalities.
Yeah.
The city of Salem, we have a customer base, and we have the money and the facilities and the services and the manpower to handle what's coming in to the best of our ability. But what about some of the smaller municipalities, like in the Lyons-Mehama Water District, that only have maybe 3 people working there, 3 filters that are about 46 by 65 feet? Yeah. They put out 500,000 gallons a day. They don't have, and 800 customers. They don't necessarily have the money or the resources to do what we can do. So these smaller, that's a big concern, is what are they going to do? How are they going to prepare? So we care about that. And our system at Salem, we are able to provide enough water to our customers that we also provide the city of Turner water. In an emergency, we can supply the city of Stayton water and or Kaiser. Kaiser can help us out, in which case, it's my understanding is they will be. Because we're going to lower the amount of water we have to produce when they do the drawdown.
Oh, man.
And so where are we going to, let's say 5 million. Maybe we'll get 5 million from Kaiser. They're on wells. So we can get 5 million from them, so we don't have to produce as much at our island. We can slow the plant down and use our wells. So we're looking at all of these networks and different resources that we have to use, because that whole drawdown thing is going to, my understanding, is going to last 8 to 12 weeks, about 2.5 months. They'll be doing this drawdown, and then they'll stop. then that big rush of chocolate. You know how when it rains, you got the chocolate milk of water.
Yeah.
But then the next day, it's kind of clean.
Yeah.
And even the next day after that, you can see the bottom again. Same thing. It'll run. Of course, it's going to go into the Willamette.
Yeah. And then evidently your guys' plant at some point, all that rubble and sediment being kicked up. Right.
Yeah. It's so we're continuously looking at what can we do to divert. Can we filter the water before it gets to our filters? And we're coming up with ideas and different anything that we can. And one of them is we're going to isolate. All those filters aren't going to be affected. So remember I told you that the first amount of water goes to a filter. We call that raw water. And then that goes to the ozone contactor. And then the pump station sends it to a finished filter.
Yeah.
Well, we can turn any of these filters into finished versus raw. Well, we're just going to isolate 1 or 2 filters for raw water only. And the rest of the filters will be finished water, so they won't be affected.
Oh, okay.
So we don't have to ruin those filters.
Yeah.
And we'll dedicate these. And that's going to require constant cleaning. And something like this hasn't really happened, especially since the plant.
Is this something that got voted on, or it's just the engineers decided they wanted to do this?
It was this organization that is concerned about the fish habitat.
Okay.
Went to the state and said, "Hey, you need to do this." That gets a little complicated on how they did it. All they did was follow regulations. They're allowed to, because it also has to do, I believe, with confederated tribes and certain promises and commitments that were made way back, probably before we were born, and said, hey, because of these dams and this, we're having this problem. It needs to be fixed, and we're suing to make sure that this happens. And whoever voted on it, and then you have your government, and people voted in, and the Army Corps of Engineers is the one that runs all the dams. So they'll do whatever they're told to do. And, short of the president picking up the phone and say, yeah, don't let any water out of that dam. Well, then they won't.
Yeah.
Because that's where, at the dams, you've got your plaques of the people that are operating the plant. And then who are their bosses? And when I was there taking a tour of the Detroit Dam, it was the employees, then there were some officers, and then the president, Joe Biden.
Wow.
Because he's the guy in charge of all that, so, or was.
Yeah. Well, what what could you give, like, just the average citizen? How can they help? Can they donate, or what can they do to help with their local water treatment facility, if anything? Is there something just the average person can do? Just pay attention to the politics? What advice would you give on just any way to help or to prevent something like this happening in our situation, or your situation? I mean,
I don't know how the general public is going to have.
There's nothing.
Has any impact on it. The people that are fighting are the municipalities. The public works departments for the cities are the ones, because they have a budget, and hey, we're gonna, this is gonna cost money. This and so we got a big problem here. But your regular citizen isn't going to have an impact.
You really want them voting on something like that. Nobody's thinking about lowering a lake and how much sediment's going to stir up and it's going to affect the filtration of water. I don't think any average person is really going to think about that until someone like Eric is sat in front of them. You know what I mean? Like,
no, that's a good point. I just didn't know if there was anything. Yeah. But it's definitely not something people think, and that's why I wanted to do this show with you, because I do think about stuff like that, and I feel like having you on will maybe get some other people to think about it. Maybe they'll want to join and participate, whether they work in the field like you do. I think it's something that needs to be talked about more. You know, we drink it, we bathe in it. It's if you live in an urban area, you most likely require or it's your only way of water. So, you know,
Well, you know, what can people do if they were doing this drawdown in simultaneously all over the country? That would be maybe a different story. I don't know where else they're doing what they're doing in Detroit at the moment, but it's not like it's not like we know about it.
yeah.
Versus geoengineering, chemtrails and contrails. People thought it was a conspiracy theory. People wearing tinfoil hats. What are you talking about? What's going on in the sky?
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want. But you have states that are already outlawing it. Tennessee and has outlawed. Whether or not it's still happening and what are they doing about it, I don't know. But they've already said, we don't want you spraying anything in the sky. And now what I understand is I just heard a week ago, the Trump administration's, I can't remember, I've saved it, but it's part of the EPA, saying they're going to run an investigation and they're going to make it all transparent. So we'll know what's being sprayed in the sky. We'll know what he knows.
Yeah.
And how did that happen? That happened with enough people like me, you, went out there with what you were just saying what's going on up in the sky, and going to the city council saying, what are you doing over there? What are you spraying up there? People doing podcasts. There's all kinds of them out there. There's a documentary called The Dimming. And if anybody watches that, they'll find out the whole background on what the chemtrails are, because they were doing this in Vietnam. They were spraying cloud seeding to manipulate the weather. Well, they're doing that now, and they're spraying it in the skies, silver iodine, all these chemicals. And a lot of people say, you know, what are you talking about? Well, when you see a plane going up and it's flying, what you'll see is that little white tail behind them, and then it'll dissipate. Okay, so there's your contrail, ice crystals.
Yeah.
But when you see a plane starting in on the other side of, as far as you can see, and it flies over you and it's heading to the Portland airport, as far as you can see on the other side, and you look up in the sky and you see this line that's still there, and then it's moving this way and turns into a cloud.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
Those are chemicals up there.
Yeah.
And they're not talking about it, and that's the problem. And the fact that they're being quiet about it and not being transparent bothers me. And in the dimming, it shows there's a lot of the chemicals that they use in fireworks.
Yeah.
And I've looked them up, these chemicals in our SDS sheets. They're books on chemicals that you might be exposed to.
Yeah.
And they're harmful.
Yeah.
Aluminum, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But maybe they're so small and it's diluted in the air. Well, okay. Well, why did they ban it in Tennessee?
I think Louisiana's banning it too.
So they're concerned about, and now what happened is they had enough people raise such concern that now the guy from the EPA has now announced that they're going to go and they're going to take a look at this. And from my standpoint on this does that mean that they're going to stop spraying chemicals in this? Because we breathe that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And they're experimenting with your health, and they don't care. And they're just doing it because you do some homework and you'll find out there's a lot going on, and it'll upset you. But from where I'm sitting, homeowners in the city of Corvallis, everybody here in Corvallis who gets water from a municipality is going to get a letter every year, which is a water report.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it says, Here's what the levels of the contaminants were. Here's what we're treating for. We want you to know that the water you're drinking is safe.
Yeah.
They're doing that because they have to.
Yeah.
It's regulated.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is same with the air.
Yeah.
If the EPA, DEQ, cities are requiring that you send this report because it's drinking water, public safety, and now you're going to introduce and start spraying chemicals in the sky, fine. Give me a report every year and tell me what it is you're spraying.
Yeah.
Tell me what the maximum contaminant level of that particular thing is. I want to know because I have to breathe.
Right. Yeah.
I have to breathe, and I don't like what I'm seeing. And then you'll watch the news and you'll see some of these things and you'll kind of connect the dots and go, yeah, there's something wrong. They're not being as transparent as they probably should be.
Yeah.
And from where I come from, that's the best I can hope for right there. Because once they do that, then entities and organizations will become liable.
Yeah. Well,
now it's money.
Yeah.
So now something's good may happen.
Yeah. Well, the CEO of Rainmaker, which I understand that Rainmaker is a big company that does cloud seeding, he came out on several podcasts and talked about what he's pressured, by the government, what they do. And so I think that right there is going to really open that conversation, having someone like that come out and also someone like yourself, letting the public know. And I think, I used to think it's, I don't know enough about it to really say anything, but I thought it was just tinfoil hat stuff, like you said. But there is definitely something to it that needs to be discussed. And I do think having an air quality report like that would make me feel a little bit better about
an air quality report, at the very least.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. I mean, they'll do it for when it's smoky outside, so why not just do it for in general, So, but, we're at an hour, so I know you got places to be. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time to come here. This was a great conversation, and like I said, I just wanted to bring more awareness to, this whole, water, where it comes from, how it affects you, and don't flush your pharmaceuticals down the toilet, stuff like that.
Definitely not.
Yeah,
and Alec suggested I give you a call, and I like to follow my son's lead.
Yeah,
and.
Yeah, well, he was on here, and we talked plumbing, and he's a hard worker, and so I'm glad that he suggested to have you on. You do a lot of things for the community, and so I'm sure the people of Salem and just everywhere that you have helped service appreciates your work. So thanks again, Maddie. Do you have anything to add? Or
thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Your son's awesome.
Yeah, Alec's pretty cool. We like him. But, all right, guys, this is that Hella Dank podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Check in next time. Alec Stelzer, thank you again.
All right.